And welcome to Verbal Prick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome you all to the show. I'm your host, Cole Black, and my friend, who you always see dropping knowledge and information right here, Krishna, Pan African Moor. Welcome to the show, brother. Uh, yes, sir, brother. We are in here discussing African unity, but basically uh, trying to unify and get an understanding of the diaspora of Africa and all the root and branches that ties into it, whether it be the Caribbean, the UK, the African Americans, which Scarface said something that was interesting. How can you be the oppressor, right? And the native, in so many words, saying that you were oppressed by the American and you claiming African and you put all that together in one. But we all know names and titles, some of them is not what we selected, but what was selected for us, i.e., Nigeria, which was uh, named Nigeria by Flora Shaw in 1897, a white woman, because she stated that the British, I believe that was the British Trading Company, she said that, yeah, Royal Niger Company territories was too long, so she just named it Nigeria. So we need to go back, and I want to, ask you this question. Do you think that being named by your colonizer, do it have a spiritual or negative effect uh, within your status?
Yes. And for the purpose of utilizing, whether it's trees or anything in law, or even dealing with their legal system, specificity is absolutely crucial. So when you hear names like Moorish Americans, African Americans, and this is no shade because I have respect for the Moorish Americans and the African Americans. We're all the same people. These are just titles. Is that for the purpose of specificity, I use the term Moor because every time that I've submitted this paperwork, the last court case that I had was when I did a correction on my race and national origin. I changed it to specifically Moor, not Moorish, not Moorish national, not Moorish American, but Moor, because when you go into the treaties between several African nations and several European nations, they use the term Moor specifically. Now, I understand that it is the English transliteration, but this term Moor comes from, our people in particular. Most cited, they would say the Moor people, spelled Mauri, but since we're using English, then we would use the English transliteration. So that's why I utilize that specific term, because it's not about an emotional thing, when it comes to these titles, we're supposed to be using them as tools. And when you're building something, your emotions shouldn't be in it. It should be what is going to be best for the whole, for us all when it comes to building these castles.
Okay. Now, I'm understanding that Moor transcends more than just North Africa, Morocco. It went from Portugal, Spain, Ireland, uh, King Gorman. Uh, after Spain, the Moors fell in Spain, they traveled to Ireland, Europe, Mexico, Puerto Rico, you know, wherever you find, I guess, even in the Americas, evidence of Moors prior to 1492, right? Uh, man, Swarmer uh, is the Moors brought to Mexico, and they didn't know how to put the meat in the shawarma, but they had the tortilla. So they put meat in the tortilla, which they got from the Moors when they came into Mexico. So some of the dishes and some of the words and Spanish has some Arabic words in Spanish that the Moors also brought as well. So I believe we need to tap into that vast history because there's nothing like having an identity, right? I think that we suffer from a lack of identity. I think that, and you can add on to this, but when Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso, started to become prevalent, next after that, you start seeing a debate between the African American and the African. So, can you expound on any common denominators between the two groups that might can help dispel the negativity that someone has injected some negativity into forward progression of us as a whole, meaning that they're still using the same playbook that they have always used towards us, and we keep falling for it.
Absolutely. So one thing is accountability. I was just, sending messages back and forth with the good brother Master Muhammad from Marrakesh today, and we're discussing Liberia. So when there's this finger pointing that's going on with the African Americans or the so-called Black Americans, when they're pointing at the Africans, saying that they felt like, they were disrespected in some kind of way. Uh, while I'm not taking anything away from anybody's experience, we also have to look at ourselves, because when the Black Americans from America went into Liberia, they practiced elitism with them, and they looked down on them, and they exploited them for cheap labor, and that eventually led to the civil wars from the 1980s all the way into the 2000s, which is very recent, where cannibalism was involved, and the Black Americans actually ruled for over 100 years in Liberia, over the continental Africans that they looked down upon, so, there's blood on our hands as a whole. Nobody is exempt from how we went against each other with all of this infighting. And there's always a European that's in the ear, whether it's, them verbally causing dissension just by getting on one side. They always make sure that their resources go to, give certain sides, to fund them when it comes to the infighting, and we have to highlight that and understand that, because infighting is the reason why we're in the position now. We all know that that's what happened in 1492 when the last Moorish stronghold in Grenada fell. We know that Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand got in the ear on one side of the Moorish factions that wanted their child to be the next to hold the throne, and which led to the Moors getting toppled altogether, and was actually the reason why the triangular slave trade, actually went down, because of the infighting that we had going on. Nothing's new under the sun. We got the same thing today. So everybody needs to take accountability. All these gender wars and everything, everybody needs to stop pointing fingers, because it's always three pointing back at you. and everybody needs to take accountability for their role. Because while even in the gender wars that we had even before the this anti-African sentiment, you had both sides pointing the finger at each other, but there's a lack of accountability within that, and within that it is best. I'm not saying there's anything wrong for criticizing, but for the men that should be to a bare minimum, and for the women it should be to a bare minimum, because nobody can actually exercise discipline on their own gender more than that particular gender. For the men, we can have iron fists with each other and not feel no type of way. For the women, they can have iron fists with each other where they don't have to feel attacked per se. But it's best that they get it from women that have walked in their own shoes. Right. Now, when it comes to us as global Africans everywhere, we have to take accountability. All of us got blood on our hands, and we all need to be finding common ground and not focusing on our differences, because we're more alike than we are different.
Right. Now, when you stated that there's nothing new under the sun, right? It reminds me of Yakub and his grafted Caucasians, right? After they left Patmos and brought him into the Holy Land, one of his grafted Caucasians would come and tell me that you said that my produce wasn't good. Then he'd go and tell you that I said that your sheep, right, was poison. So when we met each other in the streets, we fighting, right? Like, how dare you say this about me, right? He over there laughing, right? And so after we started fighting each other, I mean on a mass scale, they took it to the king and was like, well, why are we fighting each other? This didn't exist, before. So they said that it was Yakub's children, Caucasian. So we rounded all of them up, made them cross the burning sands, General Muck, and ran them into the Caucasus Mountains, right? And told them that the earth was flat, right? But then one of our own 4,000 years later came, civilized them, gave them knowledge, and they came back out and started mischief making once again, right? Now, to where we are fighting each other. I mean, it's so simple. I don't care if the play is the same. I don't care where you at. If you're indigenous, melanated person, you fighting each other. Let's say in America, you could have had two groups that was organizers, could have been on two different sides of town. Some kind of way, some guns got involved. The next thing you know, we shooting at each other. Don't know how it happened, where did it come from, but yet we are fighting each other, right? And he's not using anything new. The same divide and conquer trick. So at this stage and point in 2025, we have to understand that it might not be him. You're right, it might be us, because when knowledge comes, you understand that he didn't shape himself. The mindset he got, he was taught that mindset, right? To divide and conquer. So why are we, and you might can answer this, why are we, even in 2025, still trying to get him or get his approval and show to him that we are okay and we should be treated as his equal when it was never in him to do so?
Right. I think that the argument that's being made right now by the people that I see online that have anti-African sentiment is based around the idea that by them attaching themselves to the land via this quote unquote Native American or quote unquote or even Aboriginal, or domestic indigenous or any kind of indigenous title, that they will then be able to access lands that was taken from them, and maybe that could even be a pathway to reparations. And it seems like this is the default motivation that they're coming with when it comes to them wanting to separate from the African identity. And then as far as all the other exterior arguments that are being made are, to me, they're ludicrous at best. So just sticking to the core sentiment when it comes to reparations, I've had, some interesting discussions about what is the best pathway. And I think that whether someone is, trying to become a part of, one of these tribes, get tribal membership so that way they can be able to access land or maybe even some type of reparations. That's one thing, and I don't see anything wrong with that as long as you're not attacking Africa at the same time, or the Caribbean or any of our people anywhere, because it's not a new thing. This is actually an old thing. We was doing this 15 years ago when it came to the whole looking up these tribes and the 1A blood and trying to become a part of them. And, so my question with that is how many people who are claiming to be strictly American Indians or Native Americans or Aboriginals, how many of y'all have actually successfully been able to find your ancestry and become a part officially accepted as a part of these tribes to be able to get any land or get any type of resources or reparations? First, you're going to have to step up and show and prove that this is actually something that you've been able to successfully do. And so that way, whenever I look up your paperwork, you don't come up as still a Negro while you're saying that you're Aboriginal, and your name shows up as some kind of European name while you saying you're under this other identity. You haven't even taken the step forward to even totally embrace what comes with that particular culture outside of just ranting and raving on the internet. Now when it comes to reparations on the Moor side of things, this is something that, I am been getting at the Moors about, that this should have been the number one focus of the entire Moorish movement. We should have been focused on reparations because our area of expertise is law. It is law. Okay. So we was putting on our paperwork 15 years ago that we were Aboriginal and Indigenous back then. That was just standard practice. So we were the ones that actually ushered this in, but we never said that we didn't descend from North, Northwest, and West Africa. We never said that. We never said that we wasn't the Kushites or come from the Kushite Empire, and that Kushite is synonymous with Moor. And, that would also, you got to include the whole Nile River Valley civilizations along with that, because we know that that's our family, and we know that they all amalgamated with each other because those cultures are all up and through that Nile River Valley civilization. So we never said that we didn't descend from Africa nor a Cuban line. We never said that. You don't cut your nose off to spite your face. You open yourself up to be able to use all tools and weapons when you're talking about establishing yourself as a formidable force on this planet. You have to understand being diplomatic and get out of this block to block, gang bang, tribal mentality. When you look at the AES, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, you see that they're involved diplomatically with other major powers on the planet, not just strictly just their countries, because they understand that in order to be able to be a formidable force on this planet and not just get ran over by terrorists, you have to look at things from an international perspective. Your little tribal group is not going to be able to contend with the U.S. military, the European global West, or any other country or power that may feel like they want to encroach upon you. Your little group, your little online group, where y'all are engaging in xenophobia will get crushed quickly, under the assumption that you can actually be a formidable force with this little group that, you're waving the U.S. flag for. Because the U.S. is not in the business of uplifting our people on this particular land. They have a class system, an oligarchy, and in order for them to stay in the position that they're at, they have to maintain the system that they originally introduced when they created their particular system that eventually was the 13 colonies and turned into what we now know as the United States in their jurisdiction. You know, so we just have to be honest. You know, when it comes to, do you just want to, you know, stay up under the thumb of these foreigners, these foreign European powers, you know, or do you want to actually exercise sovereignty and get into a sovereign conversation, which is going to have to involve being diplomatic? You can't be bashing on other powerful groups of people thinking that you're going to be able to survive in this international game.
Right.
It don't work like that.
No, exactly. But now, can we use the Europeans as an example? And the reason I say that is because let's look at Europe, right? And we name them Europeans, but let's look at Europe, whether it be again Ireland, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, right? Now they might not like each other, but they're willing to do business with each other and hold steadfast to show us that, yeah, we united and look at you. And we are really the motivating force for their unity, right? Is us, right? To show that, yes, although we came and y'all put us in these caves, look at us today and look at you today. So really it's trading places because they are building off of the knowledge that the Moors gave them. And in some aspects, they're using it successfully, right? While we are infighting, we haven't pulled our heads up out of the infight to look at working examples that's around us, right? It doesn't make sense when you have Moors in every continent on this planet, but we can't come together to do business and finance with one another and utilize some vacant lands to buy and produce to show what we can do, right? I mean, the Willie Lynch letters is real because he took minute differences and blew them up, and we fell for it, right? I mean, you can't tell. I'm gonna show you how, bro. And this is what I just recently learned that I didn't know, right? How from the male and female aspect of his suggestions, right? Now, it was stating how in India, when an Indian lady is going through turmoil and she feel like demons is on her, they cut her hair, put the demons in the hair, and then sell it to sisters in the Americas, which we don't know, which they don't know, but that's a divide and conquer methodology that they use. Give us negativity and make us proud or feel like we are getting the gift because we're so trustworthy. Even on the men's side, it's so simple, bro. And that's why I gotta invoke the power of discipline that the NOI injects, right? Because that discipline that will make a young man walk away from trouble and build for his family, that's shutting down. That's one that's shutting the system down. And so all we have to do is be disciplined and not get into trouble, and their whole system failed. The whole prison system, where all that money coming from, that's flowing into this system, it's over with. Now, the Moors, as you stated about the law, bro, bro, and this is what I learned, right, from dealing with the judicial system, right? I'm learning. Yeah, we can go to their lawyers, right? But it's not necessarily meant that their lawyers is going to give us 100% of their attention, right? Because he's still who he is. If we had a a a bank of law and in charge, I believe in charging, right? But I don't think we should do, because we're in a capitalistic society. You got an idea. You call up this phone number and you say, okay, I'm getting ready to do so, so, and so, and so. Right? What's the ramifications? Is it legal? Can I do this? Because a lot of people get caught up because in their mind, you got to think, we're indigenous people, right? And a lot of us are indigenous to this land. So instinctively, through genetic coding and DNA, we feel that we should be able to flow and travel throughout these lands as we will, as we should, because this is our home. But he put up barriers and certain things that you can't do, but instinctively we feel like we can. As soon as you cross that line, bam, you're caught up. Now you got something on your name, you doing time. When you say, man, this is something so simple, why y'all making rules on something that should be inherently viable for indigenous people that our ancestors been doing for centuries, but we no longer can do that anymore. So we need somebody we can call up and say, okay, I'm getting ready to do this, and then they can give you the advice. Well, look, bro, no, by statute, so and so, you can't do that because this, and this how much money it's gonna cost you if you do it. They gonna lock you up. A lot of brothers, they walk in and don't know and get caught up. So, and I'm saying this to say that to start building foundations, we need that aspect of true freedom. Now, on the European side, genetic coding embedded in the DNA. His mindset is you can't be free in his mindset. Bro, you can be walking down the street in a certain area, and if he see you being happy, enjoying life, somebody calling the police, they gonna pull you over, want to see who you are, what you doing over here, just to let you know that you don't have the freedom to roam like you should or like you want to. You don't have the freedom of assembly. We try to assemble, police come. What's going on over here? White folks assemble, they don't bother them, right? Because I think that it's instinctively in him to be that way. And so when we say as a people, when we say, why you treating me like this? I'ma love you till you stop doing this. I'ma sing songs until I change your heart. You wasting time and resources because it's not happening. It's 2025. It's not gonna happen. So what do you think about setting up a foundation to teach law, but also uh, charge for that information, which will keep a lot of people out of that system because it's a pipeline to prison. And I think that will give interest to the youth to look in a different direction in order to preserve their life and the future of their children.
So I think that first, the Moor Science Temple, they, from me just looking at it, have the most membership in America when it comes to Moors. And they haven't, I haven't been to a Moor Science Temple meeting, but from what I hear from people who have attended or have knowledge of it, that, they go in there, they meet up on certain days, let's just say one particular day out of the week, and they go over their lessons. And that could be great. That's like, basically like a one day out of the week kind of schooling system or education system. The thing is though, is that you have to have ever evolving curriculum, being a Moor here because of what we have to deal with. It's not like these things are already established here. And you have to have a system where things are actually being applied, where you're not just learning, old lessons and memorizing them, but you're actually applying, actually getting corrections on your race and national origin. If you say that you're not an NBC, a Negro, Black, or colored, then you need to be going and getting court orders that state that and not just, creating affidavits with just a statement of fact, but it's not going to stand when it comes to actually getting those records changed under this particular jurisdiction. And you can get things established here in America. You can take those things worldwide because of how court orders and how these particular documents, U.S. documents, how they are viewed worldwide. They're accepted, whether you're talking a passport or otherwise, So, I think that the Moor Science Temple needs to implement these systems and they need to upgrade their curriculum and upgrade their education and start really pushing for sovereignty. And I'm not talking about the sovereign citizens movement that was created by Europeans. That's not our movement. That's just something that maybe we got, some knowledge from, that some of that stuff may be, valuable and some of that stuff may be garbage for us, Now, also, that may be something that, we may open up ourselves, as the Sufi order or Moors, we may open up some things where maybe down the line we might open up some charters and things like that. Once we start moving towards that, we got some other business to attend to first. But the reason why I'm throwing the Moor Science Temple out there is because y'all already have the membership and y'all already have people coming on a regular basis to come and receive education. Right. So we need that, but we need an ever-evolving form of education that is actually being applied, moving towards sovereignty and moving towards snatching up this unincorporated land and having our own, systems, private security firms, private security companies, Sharia courts, so on and so forth. I always bring up if I'm pronouncing it right, the Beadine of America, which is basically Jewish courts, and when you look them up and you see that they're operating at a high level, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right. That is a great source of information when it comes to, having your own land. I've seen the brother in Texas that, me and you, Black, that we discussed where right. He is, trying to get African Americans to come to the land or just melanated people in general. And, he's getting pushback from the European politicians right. that are in that particular county or area. And, the thing is that, once again, shout out to Mir Kush, they made it a point to teach that religion and your quote-unquote nationality or your national origin and race is the 1-2 punch when it comes to doing business here on this particular land. You got religious rights via treaties, via the Constitution, via, many international law, the UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on and on. You have religious rights that are a part of all these particular tools that we can use to our advantage. And then when it comes to your, what Moors commonly call nationality, which, nationality in the U.S. is based on your citizenship, but your race and national origin, nationality, whichever one you want to refer to it as, there are many rights and privileges that come along with that, but you need to use them both in tandem. So for the brother that is setting up the town in Texas, that is something. So, especially if you're under one of these Abrahamic religions, because there's so much case law, so much litigation, Sharia courts, Jewish courts, Christian courts. There's so much on the record, and there's so many things that you can access that, and especially if you're Moor, we already cite Islam as peace and greetings, and so and Islamism, as the Moor Science Temple likes to say, which is political Islam, we already engage in that, and we already have accepted that. So it just makes sense for us to utilize that along with Sharia courts to get this unincorporated land. With you only have to have so many houses in order for it to be considered a city. Mm-hmm. We've been doing research on that. You have in this city, Jersey Village. Jersey Village.
Yes, sir.
Jersey Village City here, which is a small neighborhood compared to the other neighborhoods in this city, and they have their own mayor, their own fire station, their own police force, their own everything. And we can do the same thing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's a small neighborhood, if that answers your question.
No, absolutely. Because basically it should give the incentive to do. Because if you go back to civil rights movement, all the questions that were asked, then today the answer should have came, and it's time to build on the answer, right? You want true freedom, then these are the steps to create it, because we tried a specific way and it didn't work. But you can't knock the experiment. It was experiment. We wanted to see if we sung the song "We Shall Overcome." If they hit us and we turned the other cheek, they sprayed fire hose for water on us and sick dogs on us, and we accepted that, and we bend to their will and got bruised, bit, cut, shot, stabbed. After all of that, with that end, racism, and would we in the future not have to fight for voters' rights, or police brutality, or injustice, or all the pain, tears, suffering, and blood shed should have ended it back in the 60s. So still in 2025, speaking on those same issues and voters' rights issues is asinine. To now it's saying, wait a minute, we might be crazy. But it says insanity, keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. It's not, bro, it's time, bro. You're right, that's insanity. It's insanity. It's insanity for us to even think. Look, it's insanity for a black church and a white church and a black pastor telling black people to turn the other cheek, and the black folks not the one swinging. It's like, you mean to tell me y'all both read that same Bible, you can't go to that white church and tell them, hey man, you need to turn the other cheek and start hitting them people, or you need to give them people justice in the name of the God in this book or the Jesus in this book that we both reading out of. Don't send a message to black people. Go send a message to your white counterpart. But no, didn't do that. So in this day and time, we realized through the experiment, right, that didn't work, it won't work, it doesn't work. So now moving forward, now we have to take on a new mindset, a new way of thinking, and a new strategy. Because if we keep bringing that old strategy forward into the future, it will become poison to us and we'll become victim of it, because we're trying to make something work that has proven it doesn't work. So that will create a mental psychosis if we keep trying to do it. So we have to know when enough is enough and get off the brakes. We've done that, and let's move forward and produce something that will work with the technology we have today, the minds that we have today, the capital that we have today, the energy, the strength, the youth, we can do it. It's just us recognizing that, hey, we exhausted our measures of trying to be liked by those who it's not happening. We done it. It's over. You know what I mean? It's over. Even like you stated, even some of the old ways of what was taught by some of our activists, I'd say, in the past. Some things may have worked then, but in today's time, we need a new paradigm to fit the time that we living in. Consider the time and what must be done, man. So we have to get on that, bro. And before we uh, conclude, anything you like to add? Because I always leave the floor for you in the closing statements.
All right. Well, so as far as the, we like to say that the certain groups, Latinos, they say that me no black, but the you Negroes sound just like them saying me no African.
Right.
You look just as foolish.
Right.
To me.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it from an international perspective as a whole and not just this little ethno-nationalist, little tribal gangbang perspective that y'all are operating on. So we need to get past that, and y'all need to stop making excuses for not taking the AfricanAncestry.com DNA test. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to come up with all of these unproven angles on how that particular DNA test that was created by us for us is not legitimate. When you look at, all of the people, the Oprah Winfrey's of the world, and Isaiah Washington, and Danny Glover, and India Reed, and all these people who have taken the African ancestry test, and in order to be able to identify one particular aspect of their DNA accurately, down all the way down to the people. I come from the Takar people of Cameroon on my maternal side, my maternal lineage, and from the Bubi people in Bioko Island of Equatorial Guinea on my paternal lineage side. And you add that, into your entire toolkit when it comes to cultivating your culture and identity. You don't get rid of everything that you've cultivated here in America. What you do is you think holistically, you think from an international perspective, you combine them all, use every weapon that you can get your hands on in order to further cultivate and evolve, when it comes to our politics. Mm-hmm. Because that's what's going on in the AES. They're ever evolving, they're building infrastructure, they're moving fast as hell. And the rest of Africa, everybody is watching it. The United States is watching them. The United States just came out saying that they want to attack, Nigeria. We know what they did in Libya. They want to implement the same tactic that they did in Libya and Nigeria. And because how weak-minded the people here in America have gotten, some of them are falling for the propaganda. But I see some of y'all are wise enough to see the play, But the only reason why a person would even fall for that is because they're thinking in this little tribal, ethno-nationalist mindset where it's us and then them. And then these same people that call themselves Americans, they got a U.S. flag up, U.S. colonial slave flag up, and they're trying to predicate that it's okay based on saying that we're the ones that created the flag, even though United States, they're obviously the ones that are the owners of the flag. I don't care what you think you did in the past. They own the flag, they fly the flag, they conquer with the flag. That's just a reality. Yeah, that ain't my opinion. That's not subjective, that's objective. Right. So we got to get past our emotions and being emotionally driven and start thinking, business wise and thinking what's best for us wise. Like you were saying earlier, that you have the West where they figured out that we needed some level of unity, even if we don't like each other, in order for us to become the number one power on the planet, and they did. You know, I think even China did the same thing where they, you know, they had their, you know, conflicts, and they were able to combine their powers enough for them to be, you know, considered the second most, or maybe even more than that, formidable force on the planet. You know, when it comes to, you know, geopolitics. You know, so yeah, you know, we just we gotta get our shit together and stop playing these little remedial games because they're playing high speed chess.
Right.
And the conversation, you know, has to become more sophisticated. You know? And stop trying to diminish Africa just to promote your Amerocentrist ideology, your tribal gangbang ideology. Stop taking jabs at the Caribbean and our people all over the world to promote your little tribal gangbang xenophobia ideology. Because it's not going anywhere, it's not going to last. Because the foundation is garbage. So it's temporary, you know. Pan-Africanism has been around for a long time. We just seen General Langley say that Pan-Africanism is real and it has power. We just seen him say that publicly. You go on YouTube and look that up. Especially shout out to Neferkari Dessalines. He did several videos actually showing those videos with General Langley speaking on Pan-Africanism and their views toward Africa, because it is a race, a global race for their resources. So how are you going to diminish the very continent that everybody is fighting for right now? Right. China just came out in defense of Nigeria against the U.S. You think they did that out of the kindness of their hearts because they care about us? This is politics. This is business. This ain't got nothing to do with your emotions. So you got to get out of that and see the game for what it is. And I'll leave it on that.
Yeah, facts, man. Well said, bro. Yeah, it's that time, right? As we go deeper into time, as far as 2026, 2027, it's just going to get larger and larger. The scope, the scale is going to get bigger and bigger. And if your mindset is not prepared for the future, you will get left behind. Nobody's going to come back and get you. So this is the time to get your thoughts and your minds right. Right here on Borough Creek Radio. Appreciate you, brother. Krishna, right here. And until next time, we out.
Yeah.